Welcome back. I am so thrilled to have here with us tonight Mr. James Comey, the former director of the FBI, and Mr. Micheal Steele, the former Republican National Committee chairman, and two very current patriots. Mr. Comey, Mr. Steele, thanks for joining us tonight.
Great to be
I'm going to get right into the conversation. Can you start with both of you? Can you lay out for us, in kind of your briefest terms? I know we could probably talk about it all night. What's at stake in this election? Mr. Steele, I'll start with you.
Sure. Well, first off, let me just say what a treat it is for me personally to be on with Jim. And thank you, sir, for your service and putting up with what you had to put up with. But we understand how that goes sometimes in the trenches. And I think that's part and parcel of what's at stake here. Understanding what's going on in the trenches, that America has never been about one individual. It's never been about one party. It has been about the American people. Our story is a story that is part and parcel of experiences of individuals who've cobbled together this history. And at good times and bad times, we've kind of come together. It has been about freedom. It has been about the Constitution. It's been about these broad principles that we try so hard to live up to. So in this time when we see our postal service used as a political, sledgehammer against the American people, when we find our leaders failing to just do the basics in providing information, let alone the kind of services you need to deal with COVID-19, it really gets to the heart of what this election is about for a lot of citizens. I get it, folks. I'm one of the most partisan guys out there. I was a national chairman. But at some point, you realize it's about your family, your community, and most especially your country. And there's no time better to think about that than right now.
Yeah, so Mr. Comey, many of our participants have been politically active. I mean, this is just part of who they are, but they're kind of feeling that this is this country over party movement. This is different than other moments. You haven't really historically been political, and now you're really speaking out because clearly you think this is an important moment. Can you talk about that decision for you? Now what's at stake, and why is this really the moment that patriots and men and women of courage like yourself must speak out?
Thank you, Mindy, and I'm honored to be with you and Micheal. Thank you both for loving this country so much. I'm speaking out. I've never spoken at a political event before. I've never been politically active. I identified and registered as a Republican, but I had jobs that kept me away from partisan politics, and that's the way I wanted it. I'm speaking out now because I think, not to overstate it, because I don't think you can overstate it, what is America is at stake here. This amazing country of ours is an experiment. There's never been a nation that didn't have common language, common culture, common religion, common ethnic background to glue its people together to become a nation. We have none of that to knit this collection of people from all over the world into a nation. We have principles. We hold truths. We believe a certain set of things, and that's what keeps this country together. And at the center of it is a belief that the truth is real and that it matters, and it must be sought, it must be spoken, it must be at the center of our national life and our government. And Donald Trump represents an assault on all of that, on the idea that truth even exists. And if we ever become numb, become overwhelmed, allow the notion that truth is all relative and doesn't matter to become part of who we are, we cease to exist. And so I think the reason so many independents and former Republicans and principled Republicans are joining us tonight is they see the same thing, and they love this country too much to let it go without a fight. Lots of important policy disagreements. There are things above those that matter so much more than that, and the truth is foremost among them.
Thank you. So, Mr. Steele, let me just tell you, we're at this really unfortunate moment in our nation where we're deeply polarized. You and I working in politics, and Mr. Comey, we've seen this over the last 10 years, just this growing rift and polarization, and our elections becoming more about fear and hate of the other side than even kind of what your own side or your own guy or gal stands for. And we're seeing that kind of again now. We see the Republican, party or Trump trying to just, his main strategy is to try to scare people off to a Biden-Harris administration as a way to gain support. Can you say kind of for you why a Biden-Harris admin at this time is less scary than a second Trump term?
Because at this moment, while we can have the big policy fights on healthcare and things like that, that's not what the country is looking for. It's not what the country's hungering for. They're hungering for leadership that kind of brings the disparate parts of the nation together, particularly, Mindy, when you're looking at where we are on civil unrest right now, the killing of African-American boys in neighborhoods across the country, and the response to that. Just yesterday, yet another incident that the country is starting to grapple with. In the past, we've had leaders who would help us step into those moments that are very difficult. And yet we don't have that right now. Instead, to Jim's point, it's more about whose side are you on? You know, if you're not wearing a mask, then you must be supporting Donald Trump. If you do, then you are not supporting Donald Trump. No, I'm wearing a mask because I want to stay alive. I want to protect my family. So these are the things that in this moment that the country is like, can we get past the stuff that's sort of ripping at who we are? We've been angry and resentful for a while now over a lot of different things for a lot of different reasons. And we all know that. And we can chronicle that, but that's not exactly what the country's looking for. And I think there are reasons why when you look at what you saw unfold last week at the Democratic National Convention, particularly for me, that roll call of the states, I remember tweeting out and saying to some folks, this is like the country is nominating this man. They know him and they know where his heart is. They understand the tragedy that's befallen his family. And they also know how he's walked through that. Even when it's been tragic for him, he's helped others. So I think that's the kind of thing people are looking for. That empathy in our leaders is something we didn't think we'd ever miss, but boy, do we miss it.
Yeah, and Mr. Comey, what is your sales pitch to the undecideds in the Republican Party? You know, we hear so often, probably most people that are participating in this convention, they know that they can't support Donald Trump or they don't want to support Donald Trump, but they're just having a hard time kind of crossing that Rubicon. You know, what is your sales pitch to those types of undecided voters?
I asked them, so what do you think America is about? Is it about taxes and immigration and regulation? Is it about the things that we fight about normally in this country, or is it about something above that? Is it about a set of principles, the rule of law, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of association? Is it about the things that this country was built to try and achieve? The answer is obvious. It's about those higher level things, and those are under threat. And if we lose those, it doesn't matter what your views are on taxes or immigration or regulation, because America is gone. And so if you love this country and you think about the principles on which she was founded, you have to vote those principles. And there's only one of the two candidates that represents those principles. You may have different views than Joe Biden on all kinds of things. He's a person of integrity and decency. And Republicans used to believe that character mattered most, that character came first. Well, it's time for all of us to remember that and to vote that and to elect Joe Biden the next president.
That kind of says it all. Mr. Comey, Mr. Steele, thank you so much for joining this convention on founding principle. We're honored to have you here and help us kick off the program today. We hope you'll tune in for some of the rest over the next few days. And we look forward to seeing you then.